Chairman.
Good morning, President.
Good morning.
Okay, this press conference is called to order. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Fourth Estate. Thank you very much for coming at our invitation to this press conference at a very, very short notice. We thank you so very much for adhering to our invitation. Today's press conference is called specifically to give our response as a party to the SONA State of the Nation address by His Excellency the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe yesterday. So we have none other than the President of the Mdc-T, the Honorable Senator Douglas MWONZORA, to take us through today's engagement with yourselves. So I don't think I need to introduce any members on the leadership that is before us.
Yes.
Maybe I should. I have immediately next to me here the national chairman of the party, Honorable Senator Morgan Komichi. I also have to the left of the president, the Secretary General of the party, Honorable Madam Paulina Mbariwa, and also the National Vice Chairperson, retired Major Charles Mutseko. So this is the leadership that we have today, and without much further ado, I will hand you over to the President to proceed with our engagement. Mr. President.
Thank you. If you can liberate me on this one. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen of the press. Our National Chairman, Senator Morgan Komichi, Deputy National Chairperson, Major Giles Mtsekwa, our Secretary General, Madam Paulina Mbariwa, and our spokesperson, Mr. Witness Dube. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming to this press conference. We know also that the notice was short, but thank you so much. The purpose of this press conference, as the spokesman has said, is to discuss our appreciation of the SONA, but it is also to give you the developments that have happened in the party and in the country. Since our extraordinary Congress on the 27th of December 2020, our main task has been to stabilize and unite our party. We are happy to advise you that our party is completely stabilized and our structures are fully functional. Our meetings are being well attended and our people are motivated. We are also happy that our philosophy of the rational disputation is gaining currency among the Zimbabweans. We remain committed to dialogue, and the reason, the artery of that dialogue is the betterment of the lives of the Zimbabwean people. Ladies and gentlemen, on the 11th of June, we wrote a letter detailing our demands for dialogue to the President, Dr. MNANGAGWA. On the 16th of September, he replied to that letter in writing. And he makes certain propositions in his reply to us. These are the propositions that we are currently subjecting to internal discourse. To that end, we have started consultation with our structures. We are going province by province, district by district, consulting our structures. This process started yesterday with Harare. It started last week with representatives from the provinces. 6 of the top officials from each provincial executives were in this very room being briefed by senior leadership. And now we are at the process where we are consulting the provinces themselves, the provincial councils. Today, we will be in Chitungwiza, consulting our Chitungwiza structure. And then after that, our leadership are going to be sent to the various provinces. I know Chairman Komichi will be going for Manicaland. I will be going to Mashonaland East. The Secretary General will be going to, is it Mashingo again?
Mash East.
Mash East with me, and then Mashonaland West, where she hails from. The president yesterday delivered his State of the Nation address. There are a number of things that we do agree with in that State of the Nation address, and there are a number of things that we do not agree with. First, on the issues that we agree with the concept and the proposition that in order to promote Zimbabwean industry, to promote manufacturing, we must promote the campaign of Buy Zimbabwe. In that campaign, Zimbabweans should be encouraged to purchase those things manufactured in Zimbabwe. To that end, we urge the manufacturers to make sure that their standards are acceptable. But we want to join in the campaign that people must buy from the Zimbabwean manufacturers. We also agree that there is now a new phenomenon in agriculture of young emerging farmers. And these farmers are doing very well. They are very innovative. They are full of energy, and they have a lot of imagination. So they have to be encouraged. We also agree that because of the resurgence of manufacturing, albeit at a smaller scale, there is a more demand on electricity. To that end, all electricity projects that have not been completed, especially in Hwange, have to be completed. We do agree with that. We also agree that Zimbabwe's international isolation must now be removed. This international isolation is not benefiting the people of Zimbabwe. Rather, it is benefiting the very people targeted by the sanctions. Ladies and gentlemen, if you go to Borodale, if you go to Glenlord, if you go to Mount Pleasant Heights, and all those rich suburbs, you will see buildings, new buildings being constructed, sometimes by the very people that the sanctions are supposed to target. We believe that sanctions, as things stand, give a ready explanation for people to explain away their incompetence. They also, unfortunately, lead to opaqueness in our systems. People smuggle gold on the basis that they are sanction busting. So that excuse must be removed. However, there are a lot of things that we do not agree that we are either in the SONA or not in the SONA. Although the president talked about growth of 7.8%, this growth is not inclusive growth. This is growth that the common man and the common woman are not feeling. So we want inclusive growth that will be enjoyed and felt by all the Zimbabwean people, especially the poor. We are mindful of the fact that 49% of the Zimbabwean people live below the poverty datum line. Therefore, we want inclusive growth. Although the government is saying that inflation has stabilized, the exchange rate have stabilized, on the ground, empirical evidence shows that inflation is going up and that the exchange rate is very, very unstable. While the president talked of the auction rate, we know that besides the auction rate, which is the official rate, we do have the parallel market. And this parallel market is driving up inflation. And we were told by the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission that the parallel rate, exchange rate, is being driven by the big wigs. To that end, we want the government to tackle corruption more seriously. The plunder of our national resources must be harnessed forthwith. We hear from the economists that $3 billion dollars, United States dollars, are being lost in Zimbabwe to illicit financial flows. The Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission has given a figure to date of 1.8 billion being lost as a result of corruption. And according to the chairperson of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, this is being done by the big wigs. So we call upon President Mnangagwa and the government to rein in on these culprits, to bring to book these criminals. These criminals are economic saboteurs, and they are sabotaging the people of Zimbabwe. They are shortchanging the poor and the downtrodden. Although the young farmers are up and coming, they need to be supported. And to that end, we call upon the government to give these young emerging farmers access to credit. What we have also noticed is that these young farmers are predominantly male. We want a mechanism to encourage the girl child to go into farming as well. But we want these farmers to be incubated. We want them to be supported. We want them to have access to credit, access to subsidized inputs. We are happy to note that tobacco has brought in $589 million as foreign currency in this country. That is very good, but we think that more should be done. Therefore, we call upon the government to attract investment into value addition. We also demand that there must be fair, timeless, and efficient payment for the farmers. As you know, ladies and gentlemen, farmers, after supplying their tobacco, have problems in accessing their money. Zimbabwe remains bedeviled by high levels of unemployment. Most of our school leavers are unemployed. Therefore, we must address the problem of unemployment. This is something that we did not see in the president's speech. Although Zimbabwe's economy is growing on paper, that is, we have not seen fair distribution of economic resources. So we demand fair distribution of economic resources. Another phenomenon that has emerged is the displacement of Zimbabweans by new coming investors. Now, that is an issue that is worrying us. Before any Zimbabwean is displaced from their land, there must be viable alternatives put in place. Alternatives which will make sure that people who have been displaced get enough housing, enough amenities like schools, hospitals, and so on before they are moved out of their land. There also must be compensation, adequate and fair compensation for these people deprived of their land. And we want the government to deal with that. We also think that there must be a stimulus package that must be given to those companies, especially the small companies affected by COVID-19. We were told that the government has set aside 18 billion. We want to see this 18 billion at work. We want to see small business people being helped. The women, the people who are in the informal sector have to be helped by this stimulus package. And it has to be made to all the Zimbabweans, irrespective of political opinion and so on. We agree that we must promote the buy local campaign. We also saw that in his legislative agenda, the president calls for a number of statutory interventions, legislation, including the private volunteer organization. Here, we want the government to enact laws that protect and promote civil society, and so that civil society organizations are free to do their work, are free to exercise oversight, are free to criticize the government or government-related institutions without any hindrance. We call upon freedoms to be extended to civil society, and that this civil society must be strengthened. The remuneration of our workers remains a great source of worry for us as a social democratic party. And this is more pronounced, I think, for civil servants. Their salaries are below the poverty datum line. And already we have been told that the total consumption poverty line in Zimbabwe is over $6,000. This has to be redressed. We want the government to pay attention to promotion of the women's issues, especially the involvement of women in the political, social, and economic life of Zimbabwe. As I said, ladies and gentlemen, the MDC remains committed to dialogue. All the things that I have said here can be resolved through dialogue. These cannot be resolved by the government alone. This must be resolved by the government, civil society, business, labor, and the political parties, whether they are in parliament or outside parliament. That is why the MDC-T has called for electoral reforms. These electoral reforms are not designed to advantage the MDC-T. They are designed rather to lead to social, political, and economic reforms that will benefit the people of Zimbabwe. On the electoral reforms, we call for the diaspora vote. We also call for the reform of the Zimbabwe Election Commission. You will notice, ladies and gentlemen, that the Zimbabwe Election Commission has committees under it. And these committees are dominated by the executive. So we want dialogue. And we think, as the MDC-T, that elections without reforms will lead us back to square one. This is not the first time that the MDC is talking about this. After its Congress of 2014, the MDC-T embarked on a program, no reforms, no elections. We then formed the National Electoral Reform Agenda for the purposes of pushing electoral reforms. This is where we are at. We want elections, but we want elections after reforms. And these reforms must be embarked on as a matter of urgency in time for the elections. So, ladies and gentlemen, the MDC wants elections, but wants elections after reforms. The sequence, according to the MDC, for the sake of completeness, is that reforms first and then elections second. There are those people, some of our friends, who think that we must go to elections first and then do electoral reforms second. We do not share in that foolish bravery at all, because we have seen this before in Zimbabwe. We have had elections without reforms, and we have had the results of those elections without reforms. So we want reforms first, and then we have elections after reforms. And these reforms are a matter of urgency for the Zimbabwean people. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, the Honorable, the President of the MDC-T. As we heard, ladies and gentlemen, he touched on quite a number of issues. So if we are to do justice, if you are to do justice to the topics that he touched in his response to the State of the Nation address and other topical issues, it will be good for us to be brief in our inquiries and to avoid lengthy comments and just going straight into the business of asking for points of clarity, so that we can carry the message from all the newest understandings that must come from this engagement. So without any further delay, I would ask for a round of questions, points of clarity, as we engage with the President and the MDC-T.
Mr.
Sorry, I would love to, for anyone who is going to ask for, to actually introduce themselves first, and then I would love to pick a show of hands so that we can prepare for the questions in case other people have to respond to them as well. So you are recognized. 1. I see Daily News there. 2, 3. Check mark.
Yeah.
And this is the first 3 questions. Okay, let's deal with those first.
French Power is my name. Mr. MWONZORA, should the MNANGAGWA administration decide not to implement the key democratic reforms that you are alluded to, including electoral reforms, are you going to take part as a party in the 2023 elections?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. Yes.
The major thing is, Mr. MWONZORA, you spoke about the removal of sanctions. I wanted to find out what your take on the reasons for which sanctions were imposed in the first place. Do you think it is fair to go for their removal without calling for correction of those allegations in the West?
Okay, thank you very much. Tongai, check mark.
Tony.
Tony.
The Tonga is not just right. My question, Mr. MWONZORA, on your first words, you mentioned that you sent a letter to the president on the 11th of June, if the date is right, and you are now consulting various public stakeholders as far as the response is concerned. But we are concerned you have not told us exactly what is it that you initially demanded, and you said that they've already responded. What were they responding to? And you are now consulting Zimbabweans. What are you now consulting Zimbabweans? You have not kept us in the loop as far as this discourse is concerned. We need to know exactly, because you are representing the people of Zimbabwe, and you are now almost finalizing this, and we don't know exactly what you guys are discussing with MNANGAGWA.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. The first question is by Frank, whether if MNANGAGWA and his government refuse to implement reforms, we will take part in the 2023 elections. Well, we are not conditioned that way as the MDC-T. We believe in the Chinese saga, fight 100 battles and win 100 victories. So why should we budget for failure? We are going to push for these reforms, and we are going to get them. And right now, our mentality is focused on getting these reforms. We know how to get them. We will get them through dialogue, and this dialogue will be inclusive, genuine, and unconditional. Therefore, as regards what will happen if certain things don't happen or happen in 2023, we are unable to postulate. For example, we are not able to say which reforms do we have got and which reforms would we not have attained. And at that point in time, we will have to make a judgment of our own. But right now, we are not budgeting for failure. We are very confident that we will be able to get some of these reforms, if not the majority. Just to put you into perspective, the MDC-T has already drafted a document. We call it the Dialogue Resource Document. This deals with all those things, all those reforms that we want, with sufficient particularity. On the electoral reforms, we itemize the exact reforms that we want to see. For example, the diaspora vote, the reformation of ZEC, the linking of the delimitation to population census, and also the involvement of the political parties or the stakeholders in polling station mapping. All these things, we have put them down, and we do have a document. The sanctions that were put by the West, mostly Europe and the United States, were in apparent reaction to the human rights abuses that took place in Zimbabwe. And some of these human rights abuses are objectively verifiable. And therefore, according to the United States and the Europeans, they imposed these sanctions. But in 2012, our our founding president, Morgan Tsvangirai, as Prime Minister of Zimbabwe, traveled to Australia, where he advocated for the removal of the sanctions, on the basis that these sanctions were hurting the very people that they were meant to protect. They were benefiting the very people that they were supposed to prejudice. So they are not achieving their intended purposes. Again, in 2012, 2013, Morgan Tsvangirai wrote a letter to Prime Minister David Cameron, and this letter was hand-delivered by Jameson Timber, where he was asking for the removal of sanctions by the European Union. As you know, Britain was still a member of the European Union then. The Europeans responded in 2013 by removing everyone on sanctions, with the exception of Grace Mugabe and Robert Mugabe, and with the exception again of the Zimbabwe defense industries. The army commanders were put on what is called the suspended list. In other words, they are not under sanctions and they can travel to Europe. So as we speak, only 3 people are under European sanctions. That is the late Robert Mugabe, his wife Grace, and the Zimbabwe defense industries. The Americans, of course, have not removed their sanctions. But our view as the MDC, our position is that we support the international re-engagement of Zimbabwe with the international community. But this re-engagement must be made. In this re-engagement, any positive movement on the part of the international community must be matched by an equally positive movement on the part of Zimbabwe in instituting key social, political, and economic reforms. In other words, the movement regarding sanctions must be on a quid pro quo basis. We are not advocating, as others may be doing, for removal of sanctions while Zimbabwe folds its hands. Zimbabwe must be active in ensuring that these measures are removed by instituting key political, social, and economic reforms. But the fact of the matter is that these sanctions are not affecting the people who are targeted. They are having unintended consequences. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we have been under sanctions for over 2 decades. The lives of the Zimbabwean people have not improved. The economic system has not improved. The social system has not improved. The electoral system has not improved. And therefore, we think that they are not working. If anything, sanctions give a ready excuse for people to explain away their incompetency, to explain away their corruption, and so on. My friend Tonio, thank you very much for the question. What exactly did we demand from President Mnangagwa, and what did he say in return, so that Zimbabweans are not in the dark? I want to thank you, and I want to say to you, there are certain principles that we as negotiators and live by. One of the principles is that we don't negotiate in public. Negotiation in public is not the best thing to do, and it's not the most effective thing to do. But what we did put to the president generally is the need for dialogue, and the reason for the dialogue, the major reason for the dialogue, is to do those things that will result in the betterment of the lives of the Zimbabwean person. It may be reforms, it may be other measures, and so on, but it must be calculated to improve the lives of Zimbabweans. And this dialogue must not generate an elite pact. In other words, it must not be an agreement between ZANU-PF and Mdc-T. That is an elite pact. It must be organic. It must involve the people of Zimbabwe. It must involve all the stakeholders. So again, in that paper, we did suggest timelines to the president by which the reforms could have been done. and all the dialogue could have been finished. We were mindful, of course, that we have 2023 coming, and if we do not do these things as a matter of agency, they may become academic, because they may be overtaken by events. So the substantive matters, we will make them available at the appropriate time. Right now, we are consulting the MDC-T structures. After that, we will consult the people of Zimbabwe based on what the MDC structures would have said. So I, on behalf of my leadership, took the document to State House, reported to the leadership, Standing Committee, National Executive, and the reply came. It was addressed to me, and I then put it to the senior leadership, Standing Committee, National Executive. It is the National Executive that said, before we go to the National Council, we need to hear what our structures are saying. And that is the process that we have started. After consulting the structures, which should be after about 10 days from now, after consulting our structures, we will convene a National Council meeting. The National Council will give us a final directive on what to do. Depending on what they say, we will then go to the people of Zimbabwe, the general people of Zimbabwe. So I'm sorry to say that I can't tell you the substantive matters. I have heard some people saying, oh, maybe you went to ask for postponements of elections. Maybe you are afraid of by-elections and so on. Well, I know that those people who are saying that are actually afraid of the by-elections. I know that those people who are accusing us have informally approached the government to say we do not want elections. And yet they cry more than the bereaved. And when time comes, I'll name them. But we want reforms and then elections.
Thank you very much. You want to make a follow-up question? Yes, maybe straight away.
Yeah, the follow-up is in regard to the dialogue. I hear you say you are now consulting the party. And I thought the idea for dialogue came from Congress, which means the party, which mandated you to seek dialogue.
Oh, thank you very much. Sorry, I've understood your question actually. The party mandated us to pursue dialogue. And in that pursuance of dialogue, we had a strategic retreat of the National Standing Committee that produced the document that I took to President Mnangagwa. But the party members did not know how President Mnangagwa and government were going to react. They have reacted. It is this reaction that we are consulting them upon, not consulting them on whether we should dialogue or not. It is now because of this reaction, because of this development that they were unaware of at the time that they made their instruction to us. So that is what we are consulting upon.
Thank you very much. Second round. You can only see Tonio again. Is there nobody else? Okay, Tonio, shoot already.
Maybe it's also more or less of a follow-up on those pertinent issues. There's not been any appetite from the government to reform. You've been pushing the reform agenda for as many years as I remember. Even last election, you even marched to ZEC, you sent a proposal to ZEC, a demand rather, after March to ZEC, and there's not been any change as far as your demands are concerned. Is this not going to be a scapegoat or an excuse not to be going through for elections, since your conditions are very clear that no reform, no election? Should we be wrong to check it that there are not going to be any elections, since obviously the government is not going to be giving you any reforms, because we don't think they're going to be giving you the reforms? Will it not be interpreted that there are not going to be any elections, since they will never give you this reform that you've been demanding for the past?
Unlike our colleagues, Tonio, unlike our colleagues in the opposition, we don't give up. The fact that the government has not allowed reforms over the years is no good enough reason why we should not insist on them. And as we are predominantly labor-based, as we are predominantly conceived from the trade union movement, we will keep on knocking. We shall keep on knocking, and we shall not give up until we get those reforms. And these reforms are reforms that guarantee the secrets of the vote, the security of the vote, and the security of the voter. Now, what are our colleagues in the opposition saying? They are saying that they want elections, whether there are reforms or not. And our view of that is that, number one, they are being inconsistent, because under Morgan Tsvangirai in 2014, we came up with the issue of electoral reforms preceding elections. And some of the reforms, like the biometric voter registration system, we were able to get them. Some of the reforms, like the code of conduct for political parties, we were able to have them. Now, as things stand, our colleagues in the opposition will point out to you the things that are wrong about the electoral system in this country. They will say to you that they have been winning elections. We have been winning elections since our formation. And then they don't answer the question of why we have not attained the power. It's because of the electoral system. Now they want us to go to elections without reforms. That is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. That's why, of course, you would hear Senator Komichi very vociferous on that elections without reforms are an act of foolishness. It's doing the same thing and expecting a different result. Now, how do we attain these reforms must be what should exercise our minds as the opposition. Our friends think that they should go to SADC. Some think that they should demonstrate. Some think that they should write a lot of stuff on Twitter, on Facebook, on WhatsApp. We believe that those methods don't work. Demonstrations, the streets are there, but I have not seen the demonstration taking place. What I have seen are leaders calling for demonstrations, and on the day of the demonstrations, they disappear. And some of them, we see them in mountains. Some of them are retrieved from ceilings. Some of them tweet that I am not in Harare, I am in Vukururu, to give an alibi to the state afraid of being arrested. Until we have brave leaders, those demonstrations will never be done. They will always be things that people will talk about. Now, what are we saying as the MDC? We are saying we want to use dialogue. Why are we saying we want to use dialogue? Because on 3 occasions, dialogue has worked. The War of Liberation was ended at Lancaster with dialogue. The madness in Matabeleland, the Gukurahundi massacres, were ended with the dialogue and the signing of the Unity Accord. The senseless bloodletting in 2008 was ended with the dialogue, culminating in the signing of the global political agreement and the consummation of the government of national unity. It has worked before. And therefore, we are fortified in thinking that it can work again. Dialogue remains the only viable proposition. It is painless, and if it is properly consummated, it is very rare to leave the dialogue table without anything. So we think that the dialogue will work. And right now, let's face it, we have a reply from the president. That is the starting point of dialogue. I write to you, you write back, and that is discourse, and we take it from there. And we are happy as the MDC-T that we have managed to achieve that, to get the president to reply to us and to commit himself to dialogue. And we intend, of course, to take advantage of that.
Thank you very much. Let me hear from this gentleman here.
I understand exactly who is in the record saying dialogue can only be done through collaboration. Are you going to engage to dialogue through collaboration?
So you want to have another bite? Maybe we are running out of questions. You may have the last few hands, then we call it a wrap. Tony, you want to come in again? Okay, so this will be the The last 3, if you don't raise any more pending
You
issues.
should give Tonio the freedom of Harvest House.
He has it already. So, yeah,
So
yeah.
you talk about dialogue being the only way to go. But political science states that for any political dialogue to take place, there must be mutual aids. Do you think ZANU-PF is ready, given the 2/3 majority they want the election? What would motivate them to dialogue? It could be only the MDC acting.
Tony, your last bite.
Maybe more or less on the same lines. Do you honestly think that the ZANU-PF is going to be reforming itself out of power? Because you rightly say that most of these reforms will be demanded, they already granted, and you have won elections, but you have failed to secure power. You're also part of the same MDC in these past years and failed to secure power. Are these not the same reforms that get a political party out of power? That you think that ZANU-PF today will then now reform itself out of power? Why do you think that is going to be possible, and why you keep on pursuing that way?
Oh, thank you very much. The first question, very straightforward. Are we going to dialogue through Pollard? And ZANU-PF has said that the forum that they want is Pollard, and therefore are we going to join? This is one of the issues that we are consulting on as the party. We believe that Pollard is not dialogue. Pollard is a dialogue platform. The commodity that we want is dialogue. The Pollard is a dialogue platform. It's not the issues that are to be dialogued upon. So we are consulting our members, and we will make their decision known very, very soon. But of course, just to let you, if we are to go to the Pollard route, there are a few things that we will obviously insist upon. What we are interested as the MDC in is the dialogue that is inclusive, that is genuine, and that is unconditional. Whether it is met through the platform of Pollard remains to be seen. But we are interested in a dialogue. The dialogue platform is a secondary issue. Mugowe, you say that the political scientists that say that in order for you to engage in a political discourse, there must be mutual hate. In other words, there must be mutual injury. And you ask me a question on whether I think that ZANU-PF is hating. Of course, ZANU-PF is hating. Of course, nobody wants to preside over unhappy people. No one wants to preside over impoverished people. And therefore, to that extent, the impoverishment of the people, the unhappiness of the people, pose an existential threat on ZANU-PF. Zimbabwe is internationally isolated, and therefore the government is hating. It is every day talking about the removal of sanctions, not because it's an academic or idle talk. It's because they realize that the sanctions are truly hurting. And therefore, this dialogue would result in serious reformation in Zimbabwe. And one of the reasons for the sanctions, at least on paper, from Zidera, is reforming the political system, reforming the electoral system in this country. And if that is done, and it is done through dialogue, you make a good case for the removal of the sanctions. The members of ZANU-PF don't buy in different shops from you and me. They buy in the same shops. They go through the same problem of unemployment, the problems of the poor health delivery system, and so on. So everybody wants dialogue. But let me say to you that the most people in this country, the political leaders, but let me talk about the three constant offenders, President Mnangagwa, Advocate Chamisa, and myself. We have both, in different words, talked about dialogue. Advocate Chamisa has said he wants dialogue. President Mnangagwa has said he wants dialogue. I have said I want dialogue. and I'm saying I representing my party, and of course they representing their parties. So Zimbabweans are agreed that the panacea is dialogue. What they are not agreed about is that some will say we want dialogue, but we don't want Monzora to be part of that dialogue. Exclusivity. Some will say we want dialogue, but first of all, do this and that. We beg to differ. We say dialogue must be inclusive. Every Zimbabwean who has an interest to protect or to advance is free to be a member of the dialogue process. But also importantly, we want civil society involved. We want churches involved. We want labor movement to be involved, business to be involved. They may not be involved on an equal footing like we did in COPAC. In COPAC, there was involvement of civil society, but we as COPAC, we as the parliament, we were driving that process. So it is possible to have a dialogue platform which is run by political actors, but which involves in its process civil society and trade unions, business and churches. Now, the other question is, can ZANU-PF reform itself out of power? What ZANU-PF thinks is irrelevant. What ZANU-PF wants is irrelevant to us. What is most relevant to us is what the people of Zimbabwe want. If the people of Zimbabwe focus on what they want, no one will stand in their way. We have seen through in history, the ruling party did not want the constitution. Mugabe did not want the constitution. Mugabe did not want certain things that were in the constitution. But the constitution is there. Those things are there. Why? Because of the power of the people, the power of focus. So what the MDC wants is irrelevant. Why is that? What ZANU-PF wants is irrelevant. But what Zimbabweans want is relevant. And we know what Zimbabweans want as the MDC-T. Ever since the extraordinary Congress, we have advocated for dialogue. And what we have noticed is that 76% of Zimbabweans in the rural areas agree with our message. They agree with the dialogue. And you can go to the Afrobarometer research results. And we have seen that 68% of Zimbabweans in the urban areas want dialogue. And this is what we are saying. So we are in message with the people of Zimbabwe. And we also know from the Afrobarometer, actually, that is 66% of Zimbabweans want an inclusive government. It goes on to say 66% of those belong to Advocate Chamisa's party. That means Advocate Chamisa is not in agreement with the 66% of his supporters. That's how you interpret that statistic. So we are happy that we are doing dialogue. Yes, it is possible to get reforms, Tony, and it is possible to get reforms that ZANU-PF does not want. The raison d'etre, the reason for dialogue is not to get rid of anybody. It's not to get rid of ZANU-PF. It's not to bring MDC to power. The reason for dialogue is to do those things that are in the best interest of the Zimbabwean people. Those things that will lead to the betterment of the people, of the lives of the people of Zimbabwe. Our friends in the opposition are looking at dialogue as a source of power for themselves. No, it is not for us. The reason is to do those things that are in the best interest of the people of Zimbabwe. Is it in the best of interest of the people of Zimbabwe that we talk it over and we improve our economy? Is it in the best interest of Zimbabwe that we have electoral reforms which will result in the enfranchisement of our people in the diaspora? Is it good for Zimbabwe? Is it good for Zimbabwe that we dialogue our electoral system, violence out of our electoral system? Is it in the best interest of the people of Zimbabwe? If we achieve that, whether I become president eventually or I don't is irrelevant. As long as we achieve that for the people of Zimbabwe. We are doing this for the people. We are not doing this for ourselves. Yes.
But may I deal with certain perceptions? In conflict management, we believe that leaders confront conflicts directly. Whenever there's a challenge, a true leader is the one who stands up and confronts that particular conflict in order to provide the solution. In Zimbabwe, we do believe that there's a conflict, politically and economically. And we've been brave enough as this team to stand up and say, let us dialogue on these issues because these issues are real. When we move outside and we see the people outside, people in Zimbabwe, they are suffering, including yourself and ourselves. Every worker, every family, every member in this country is suffering. That's admitted. There's no doubt about that. And the courage that we've shown as leaders to stand up and say, MNANGAGWA, let us deal with matters. That demonstrates leadership qualities. And it demonstrates that we are leaders.
Yeah, well,
it's not true that our electoral doesn't want dialogue. After 2018 elections, he sent 2 emissaries that I know to go and speak to President MNANGAGWA. The 2 emissaries came back with good news, and they were disappointed because the young men lacked the courage of leadership. The young men lacked the courage to confront the problem as it was. If you happen to meet one of the emissaries, he will tell you the details. I know him. We came back from MNANGAGWA's team with good news to dialogue, but finally the men chickened out. So you mustn't be lied to. Let me tell you, I'm one of the emissaries who worked on that project to resolve conflicts of Zimbabwe. So the question that is required there is leadership. And this is what you do not see in other people. And what you see today is leadership. We want to resolve problems of Zimbabwe. We don't care whether we will become whatever in future as committee, as MWONZORA, as Mzuri, as what. That we are bothered and concerned by the welfare of our people. That we are committed. We've got a vision, we've got a strategy and a plan. What you just listened from the president of Mdc-T is both strategy, vision, and a plan to resolve. Because there's no guarantee that if you go to any contest or any event without a strategy, you will win. We've gone through elections over and over again. But as long as we lack a strategy, vision, and a plan, you will not go anywhere. So we do not promise Zimbabweans falsehoods. We are engaged in a strategy. We believe strongly that out of this strategy, we'll get something for the people of Zimbabwe. Not for me, not for the of friend. We are focusing from issues of power and focusing on issues of economy. We know Zimbabweans want to deal with economy, and out of economy can get power. We know that. So we're strategic in our approach. But however, we need to communicate to you. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Totally, we as you can see, leadership is the courage to do the right things, even if that expose you to temporal ridicule. Yvonne, do you have anything to ask?
Since you've asked, I'm going to ask Sawa, maybe for the avoidance of doubt, what is it that Zimbabweans want that you're taking onto the dialogue table should that platform be created?
Oh, thank you very much, Yvonne. Zimbabweans want peace. Zimbabweans want economic inclusion. They want an end to poverty, deprivation, and misery. They want equal access to national resources. They want equal opportunities. Right now, people of your age, some are being given access to mines because they belong to certain political parties. while you won't get the same opportunities. So Zimbabweans want equal opportunity. Zimbabweans, especially the young people, want to live this life to their full potential, and they have this potential, but they do not have the means. So they want an enabling environment to thrive, an enabling environment to grow and realize their dreams. Zimbabweans want to be a friend of the world. Zimbabweans don't want to be a friend of the Americans, of the Chinese, of the British, of the Indians. Zimbabweans want to be friends of everyone. So Zimbabweans also don't want hate language. Zimbabweans are tired of fighting amongst themselves. Zimbabweans want a political party or political parties which are institutions, that are organic beings and not one man, one women band. So we think that also Zimbabweans, of course, they want free and fair elections. It goes without saying. Every Zimbabwean wants his or her vote to count. Zimbabweans in the diaspora are Zimbabweans. They have interests in this country. They are being given obligations, and the obligation is to remit income to Zimbabwe. But that obligation is not met with a right, which is the right to vote. Zimbabweans wanted people in the diaspora to vote. And Zimbabweans want compensation to be paid to victims of political violence. We have Gukura Hundi, we have Mramba China, we have the 2008, we have 1st of August shootings, the 6 people. We have 14 to 16 January 2019 shootings. I think it was 22 people who died. They need to be compensated. So Zimbabweans want those people to be compensated. Zimbabweans want their government to say sorry. Zimbabweans want truth telling. Zimbabweans want to know what happened to their loved ones. Zimbabweans want an end to this type of politics. Zimbabweans want the politics of rational disputation and tolerance.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And thank you very much members of the press for this time. We hope to see you in our future engagements. Thank you very much.
Where is Blessed?